It's amazing to me that out here in the woods is a mushroom that I can use straight up like pasta, like instant pasta. But they are out here. Do you see them? Do you see them? They're right there. They're lobster mushrooms. In the meadow here on the edge of the forest over by the Oregon coast, most of the lobsters I'm finding right now are small and twisted into strange shapes. Lobster mushrooms come in all kinds of sizes and shapes, and I need something very specific to use for pasta, so I'll keep looking. What I'm looking for are lobster mushrooms that are big and really dense. Around here, lobster mushrooms happen when short-stemmed Russula mushrooms, Russula brevipes, get attacked by a parasite, an orange fungus called Hypomyces lactifluorum. The Hypomyces can invade the poor Russula mushroom even before it has a chance to push up out of the ground. That parasite grows all over the outside of the Russula, making an orange crust that's hard, almost like a lobster shell. Lobster mushrooms are brittle because the original Russula brevipes, that white part inside, is so brittle itself, just like all the other Russula mushrooms. Even when the Hypomyces keeps growing and takes over the Russula insides, the lobster mushroom stays white inside and stays brittle like its original host. When those brittle lobster mushrooms break into smaller pieces like this, I cook them in different ways, but they're not going to work for pasta. I'm looking for those big, dense lobster mushrooms. Hey, welcome to Haphazard Homestead. I'm Holly Chris. I'm glad you're here. Now I'm going to show you 2 different ways to use these lobster mushrooms like pasta. The first way is more complicated, but it's amazing and worth the effort. I got the recipe from Alan Burgo's website. I'll put a link to it in the video description below. Alan Burgo is a real chef, and he makes this for serving at restaurants because he can make a lot of it ahead of time. It's something special, and it really is delicious. But I'll admit, I get impatient, and I end up using lobster mushrooms for pasta in a much more simple way because it's faster, I get hungry, and it's delicious too. So you can let me know which of these 2 ways would be your favorite to eat. And if you have other ways that you like to cook wild lobster mushrooms, let me and everybody else know down in the comments too. I would really like to know. Alan Burgo calls his dish a pave. I think of it as a pressed casserole, something like a savory noodle kugel. His pave is beautiful. Mine is not nearly as pretty, but it is delicious. The first step is to grind up some dehydrated lobster mushrooms, and you may say, hey, that does not seem so instant, and this video is supposed to be about instant pasta. I say you're right. Think of this as a bonus. You don't have to do this part, but there are times when you have bits and pieces left over when you're cooking with lobster mushrooms, and dehydrating them is one good way to preserve them for later. Just make sure the dried mushrooms are crispy before they go in a jar. I'm grinding the mushrooms to the consistency of flour because I'm going to use it to coat my buttered casserole dish, just like you might use flour to coat a cake pan when you're making a cake. The rest of the ingredients are pretty simple and minimal. I need about 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese for 1 pound of lobster mushrooms, but there's nothing in this recipe that has to be exact. Here is that really dense lobster mushroom that I found that you saw before. It's about 3/4 of a pound. It's been in my refrigerator in a paper sack for a couple days, and it's still in wonderful condition. If you buy a lobster mushroom at a market, this is the quality that you're looking for. A clear, bright orange and solid and dense. No red, no magenta, no purple, and not puffy or mushy. Now here is the trick for instant pasta. With that dense lobster mushroom, don't slice it or try to grate it with a thick cut. Nope, get a mandolin, a super sharp slicer, and set it to the thinnest setting so the slices are thin like paper. Super thin. Look how thin that is. Look how thin that is. See how thin that is? That's what we want. Super, super thin. There's just no substitute for something that thin. That's cool, because you can really see. Can you see that? Can you see where this was the mushroom? Those were the gills, and then so it was like that. That was the original part of the mushroom. You see that? That's where the gills were, and they got covered up. You can see this is nice and it's hard. It's okay to slice that stem too. Use the whole mushroom, but do not eat these raw. They have to be cooked. But cooking them takes less time than regular pasta, and even less time to cook than ramen noodles. How about that? The last part of preparation is to slice some green onions and basil from my garden. Alan Burgo uses thyme, but this basil is great even though it's in flour. It's really delicious in this. Now we can start cooking. With a little oil in my skillet, I'm cooking the lobsters with the green onion and the basil. I am not trying to fry the mushrooms until they're crispy. I'm just trying to cook the water out of them. It takes about 3 minutes for this to happen. I track my progress by the sound. Listen to this. Here's where there's still a lot of water in those mushroom slices. Listen up. Now about 3 minutes later, listen to this. It's a lot more quiet. That's done, and we're ready for the next step. Now I'm going to use these cooked lobster mushroom slices like noodles in a casserole. Add 2 egg yolks, not the whites, just the yolks. Add the Parmesan cheese and mix it up. Dust the buttered casserole dish with the dried mushroom powder and put it all in there. Alan Burgo does not press his lobster noodles in his casserole dish like this, but I do. If you do this, you don't really have to do the second kind of pressing that I'll show you after this gets out of the oven. It cooks at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. Alan Burgo uses a lid on his dish, but I didn't on this one, so mine got more browned on the top. It still comes out fine. After it comes out of the oven, that's when Alan Burgo presses it. He cools it down first and uses a heavy metal press, but I use what I have, like this bowl and a jar of homemade apple juice. It all goes in the refrigerator to get pressed under that weight overnight. This has to be in the refrigerator overnight. Now, it can stay in there for 2 or 3 days, but no longer. A cooked mushroom is like meat, and it will go bad, and that's not good for anybody to eat. People can get sick, and that is not the fault of the mushroom. Now, you can see why a restaurant would make this. They can make a lot of it ahead of time. We'll get back to that casserole in a minute. While it's in the oven, I got hungry and I got impatient. So I'm going to show you a way to shortchange that oven business and enjoy those lobster mushroom noodles right away. Just go right back to another dense lobster mushroom and slice it up and cook it in a skillet exactly like before with the green onion and basil. But this time, cook it for a couple more minutes on a lower heat to make sure the mushrooms are thoroughly cooked. And that's it. That is less than 5 minutes of total cooking time. Is it any good to eat? Well, here's a live taste test review. Oh, holy smokes, this is good. It does not get much better than that. That was absolutely delicious. And here's the pressed casserole the next day. I got it out of the refrigerator, took it out of the casserole dish, cut it into sections, and heated it in a covered dish in the oven so it wouldn't dry out. And here it is. Take a look at this. Is it worth the extra time and effort and those 2 egg yolks? Well, let's find out with another live taste test review. But look, there's the layers. It's fancy. Fancy, fancy. Yep, it's definitely more meat-like. Holy smokes, that's just nice and dense. Oh, that's just pretty much too delicious for words. The other way is a lot easier, but this is delicious. Which one would be your favorite? If you're interested in other ways to eat wild mushrooms, check out this playlist over here. I hope things are going well at your place. Thanks for watching. Bye.